So if I'm going to talk specifically about athletes for a sec,
Okay.
they're really concerned, and this is specific to the athletes, about missing time in their sport, right? So if I approach my coach, if I approach somebody and I talk about that struggle I'm going through, well, I might have to miss a few weeks because I might be sidelined and really have to go see someone and start really dealing with what I'm going through. For me, I'm recovering from, as we'll talk about today, losing a younger brother to an overdose. College, high school, middle school, not athletes. A big thing for them is, well, I've already asked for help. And I either got yelled at and I got reprimanded, or when I approached that person for help, they didn't validate my emotions or feelings. You know, I see right now the two biggest things that youth are struggling with, without fail, whether it's when I go and I talk to a college, or I talk at a high school, or I talk to athletes, it's anxiety and depression. Those are the two biggest things right now that youth are struggling with and are recovering from, if they've really made that decision to start dealing with what they're going through. Those are the two biggest things without fail. Every time I talk to a decision maker and I ask them, because when I do a speaking engagement, I really want to get to know the audience as much as possible. And so I'll ask the person that I'm in contact with as many questions as possible. And I have a list of questions. And one of the questions is, what are your students or athletes really struggling with? And without fail, the first thing that pops out is anxiety, depression.
Okay. With that being said, how do you get to that? How do you help them attack that?
And that's a great question. A lot of times when youth are struggling with anxiety or depression, they don't want to say anything. That's the biggest thing right there. This is their biggest, you could say, block that's holding them back from actually dealing with what they're struggling with. They don't want to say anything because of the nerves, the concern, the fright, the emotions of, well, if I approach an adult, what are they going to say? How are they going to react? What are they going to think about me? What are my peers, my friends, my teammates going to think about me? So they have all these emotions, they have all these feelings that are just running through their head, that are just putting fear into them and holding them back from taking that first step, speaking up and asking for help from what they're going through. So for me, when I go in and I talk to students, when I go in and I talk to those athletes, I really break that stigma, that barrier down of, number one, asking for help is a weakness. It's not a strength. It makes me look weak. And that's a big stigma that still exists in our society. And so that's one of the things I'm really trying to break down is, when you ask for help, not only is it a strength, because the conversation has so much fear and so much nerves and concern attached to it, but it's also going to be the first step you take to start dealing and then healing from what you're going through.
Yeah. Yeah. Asking for help. That is a big one, man. When you ask for help, there's so much help available soon as you ask, right? So I'm glad you work with them on that area. Is there some other things that that keeps them for reaching out?
It's fear, that concern, the nerve of what the parents will think, of what their peers may think, but also, if I'm going to talk specifically about athletes for a sec, they're really concerned, and this is specific to the athletes, about missing time in their sport, right? So if I approach my coach, if I approach somebody and I talk about that struggle I'm going through, well, I might have to miss a few weeks because I might be sidelined and really have to go see someone and start really dealing with what I'm going through. And I deal with all levels of athletes. I've talked with high school athletes. I've talked with college athletes that are going to play professional. Like, you will see them on your TV one day. And especially those athletes in high school, those high-end athletes and those college athletes, they see like where they are, there's such a big opportunity. And it's like, I can't miss a second. If I miss a game, that's so bad. If I miss a shift, I can't afford to miss a second out on that field, that ice, or that court, whatever sport they play. Because they feel like there's so little room for error, and they've got to do everything they can. Every little second counts to get to that next level. So that's the big thing for athletes, is not wanting to miss any time. Now, here's going back to students, whether it's in college, high school, middle school, not athletes. A big thing for them is, well, I've already asked for help, and I either got yelled at and I got reprimanded, or when I approached that person for help, they didn't validate my emotions or feelings. They just said, you'll be fine. It's just a phase. Give it a week or two and you'll get over it. You'll be fine. And so if you think about it for a sec, there's a lot of fear, as we talked about, nerves, concern with having this conversation. And so just imagine gaining the courage, the strength to finally say, all right, I'm gonna have this conversation. I'm gonna approach somebody. I know this is gonna be so hard. My heart's gonna be pounding the whole time I have this conversation, because of fear of them rejecting you, because of fear of them not validating your emotions. But I know I have to do this because this is gonna help me. And then when they approach an adult and they let the guard down, they become vulnerable and they talk about it, that fear they had becomes a reality, and it really kills them in here to actually ask for help from somebody else.
Right. I can only imagine, because I've heard stories like that, Eric, stories that, people in recovery, in my recovery community, they did ask for help and their parents minimized it. And that's a very devastating effect that it have on the mental. I only can think about the children now, right? The students right now. How can you help them get past that, get the courage, to go to somebody else, or maybe what are some of the tools you use to help them get through that?
Well, simply this: if you approach a person and they don't help you, they yell at you, they reprimand you, they maybe shame you, or they don't validate your emotions, that simply wasn't the right adult to approach. It wasn't. Maybe you just didn't approach the correct adult. And so for me, when I talk to students, when I talk to athletes, I say, approach an adult you really feel you can trust. A trusted adult. Now, this doesn't have to be a specific adult, right? There's no right answer to it. The right answer is a trusted adult. So it doesn't have to be your parents. It can be your parents.
Right.
It can be a counselor at school. It can be a teacher at school. It can be an administrator. It can be a coach of yours. It can be a friend's parents. So there's a lot of different options out there for you. But really sit back and think to yourself, who can I trust? What adult in my life can I trust to really open up about this? And who do I believe is going to help me get through this tough moment in my life? Because a lot of times youth, they just approach, well, I have to approach my counselor at school. And not to say that's wrong, but maybe they just don't feel comfortable with it. And so that is what pushes them back. That is what really hesitates them and takes them so long. Or maybe that's what gets them not to say anything, because they don't feel comfortable talking to their counselor. But if they were to realize that they feel comfortable talking to their coach about this, then go talk to their coach about it.
Okay.
An adult they trust.
Use their intuition, whether that gut instinct, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Because a lot of times that will lead them, right? It would teach them. It would teach them how to trust themselves too. Teach them how to trust themselves. Wow, man, that's something there, man. What about? Have you had any experience with that yourself? Having fear of going to an adult?
Oh yeah, 100%. So for me, this can put us into a segue of another topic. If you know someone's struggling for help, that can
Yeah.
come with a lot of fear, nerves, and concern, that fright of approaching an adult and letting them know what that person's going through. See, because for me, I talked at the beginning of how my brother, how he passed away from an
Yeah.
overdose. And
Mm-hmm.
in the beginning, when he was drinking, I knew it. When he was smoking weed, I knew it. When he was
Mm-hmm.
messing around with pills, I knew it. When he was shooting heroin, I knew all those things. But I never said anything to my parents. I never said anything to an adult because I was so concerned. I was so afraid of the judgments that my
Yeah.
peers would have on me, right? What would they think about me? Like, what would they
Yeah.
say? How would they react? And that big word that I hear so much still from students and athletes. Well, I don't want to be a snitch.
Snitch. Yeah.
I don't want to be
Yeah.
that dude. Like, all right, I don't want to be that guy that's known as the rat, known as the person who's telling on someone. But I let them know when you have this conversation, you're not telling on them, but you're telling for them. Okay?
Right. Right.
Because people that are struggling with this stuff, and I didn't
Mm-hmm.
know this when I was younger, and I wish I did, but people struggling with this stuff, a lot of times, they want help. And they may have pushback in the beginning, but deep down inside,
Yeah.
there comes a point where that person's just like, I need help, but they don't say anything. They don't ask for it because
Right.
essentially they don't know how to. They don't know what to say. So going back for a sec, though, to my story, when I was going through that tough moment,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know all of this
Right.
14, 13, 20 years ago when my brother started using. And so I just turned the other way, turned the cheek and said, I'm not going to say anything because of the fear, because of the nerves, the concern of what
Right.
others would think. Right. And so because of that, I just said, I'm just going to let this happen. And I looking back on it, it's crazy because I was more concerned of others' judgments on me versus what could
Mm-hmm.
possibly happen to Brendan, my brother. If I knew what I know now, back then, I would have said something in a heartbeat. I would have spoke up to someone. I would have asked for help. So
Yeah.
that's probably, and again, that's not the only time in my life, but that's probably the biggest one that's made the biggest impact on my life of really not saying anything, holding back from asking for help from my brother.
Right. You said, and it still bother you, not bother you as much, right? But it
Yeah.
bothers you a little bit. What are some of the tools that you are using through that? Because me being a recovering addict, one of the biggest things, man, and that, my whole history of using drugs, it was going through the using, it was losing the job, it was losing the marriage, and letting the kids down. But the biggest part, Eric, was me forgiving myself. It was really hard for me to forgive myself. You have any
Mm.
experience with that?
Oh my God, you're talking my language now, Vernon. You're talking my language because, as I said in the beginning, when
Mm-hmm.
he died, I blamed myself a large part because for me, I brought him into that friend group that we hung around with.
Mm-hmm.
And let's say there's 15 of us. Out of the 15, 13 are either dead in jail or recovering addicts.
Yeah.
And I'm one of those people and another kid. So there's only 2 of us out of 15 that never went down that road. And so I brought him into that friend group. I introduced him and we started hanging out together. And I thought to myself, when he passed away, if I had never brought him into that group, maybe things would be different. Maybe he'd still be alive. But then
Yeah.
also said to myself, and if I had said something to somebody, if I really spoke up and I had asked for help for him, maybe
Mm-hmm.
he'd still be alive. So I really struggled with that when he died. And I fell into a large state of depression for a while
Mm-hmm.
because I just blamed myself and I, I beat myself up about it.
Yeah.
But then slowly I realized that I didn't do that to him, right? He made those choices. Yes, I brought him in to that friend group. And yes, I didn't say anything. And maybe those would have changed his life. But for
Mm-hmm.
me, I didn't bring him into that friend group and then tell him to make these choices.
Right.
Right? So he made those choices on his own. And so I started to forgive myself more and more. I thought about that I didn't do this to him. I didn't help, but I
Yeah.
didn't do this to him.
Right. When you went through that, Eric, was it hard for you? You know, you went through that depression. Was it hard for you to reach out for help?
Well, it's funny because it's kind of like everybody around me was almost going through the same thing. You know, my mother was just like, as you can imagine, losing a son. He was only 24, 25 years old. She was a mess. I was a mess. We were all just a mess. And so at the beginning, it was just all I did was just sleep. I probably was up for maybe an hour or two a day, just slept. I was just so like, my body was just so exhausted. It was just so run down. I was just so beat up. It was just like all I did was sleep, 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 get up to maybe get something to eat, go back. So at the
Mhm.
beginning, there wasn't really much talking at all. But then I
Okay.
really slowly started to express my emotions, my feelings about what I was going through. And I was able to see the result. I was able to see how I was getting better. And I'll let you know this. You talk about recovery. Well, for
Hmm.
me, my recovery through all of this is when I go and I speak to kids. Because for me, my recovery is talking about it, talking about what happened to my brother, talking about my mistakes, talking about what I wish I did. When I leave an engagement after talking with students or athletes or even parents,
Yeah.
I feel that was just my therapy session right there for that 45 hours of just expressing everything. Because if
Yeah.
you've ever heard me speak, it's not just I get up there, blah, no. I really get into it and I get emotional about it. I'll cry up on stage because I'm
Mm.
reliving those moments.
Right. Right. That's awesome, man. That's awesome because that frees us up, man. Right. Because a lot of things that I share, just like you, it frees me up for the bondage of my guilt and shame. So I'm glad you use that, man, that platform that, to help you heal. Also,
Yeah.
I write, I do a lot of writing. Is there some other tools that you have use to help you get through it? You speak. Are there some other
Yeah.
tools you
Yeah.
use?
I speak, I'll journal. I write down my feelings, my emotions in a journal. I'll even on my phone, if I don't have my journal with me, feeling some sort of way, the little note app in my what do you call it? In my phone, I'll use
Mm-hmm.
that. And just for my mental health overall, but I guess you could say as part of my recovery too, I'm active 6 days a week. So I'm either biking,
Okay.
lifting, jogging, doing something, keeping myself going, keeping my body moving. I really feel like that is really important for my recovery, but also too just my mental health in general. I feel like if I don't move 6 days a week, I just really feel like, oh,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you use yeah, because we recover and we do it. It is physical, mental. It's mental. It's socially. It's
yeah.
spiritual. How do you was there
Yeah,
anything you
yeah.
use spiritually?
So that's well, I'll say this is I was the guy that would go to church. I checked the box off. I sat in the aisles. I listened to the sermons. I got up and I left. But
Okay.
whenever it happened with my brother, I was constantly praying. And after he passed away, I really found God. And I've just entrenched myself. As much as I can, I try to make it every day. I'm reading the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
I am a part of a men's group once a week where we sit down and we talk about the Lord. I am at church once a week. So it's been a large part of my life. You could say it's been a large part of my recovery, but also just like the mental health thing,
Mm-hmm.
just like the being physical for my mental health, I really feel like just in general, being able to walk with the Lord in how he speaks to me in different times in my life is huge for my health, for me, because as you said,
Yeah.
everybody's recovering from something. And so it
Mm-hmm.
really helps to ease a lot of things in my life, the Lord.
Yeah. 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 And that's where I met him. I met God at my bottom, Eric, when I was, strung out, didn't have nothing else, man. And as you said earlier today, as we use addicts, we use drugs, we do really want help. We just don't know how to ask for
Yeah.
help, you know. And
Yeah.
I just asked him to help me. And you know, I was up 3 days. I asked God to help me, man. I fell asleep. Then when I woke up, I was on my road to recovery, man. You know, and that's how I met. And I'm like you, I still go to church, but I don't put everything in church. I done met him outside of church, and I know God lives inside of me. I know He's always there, man. And I look back, Eric, he had always been there, even when I was out there, you know, in my insane, man. Yeah, man, you speak. What else you do? Do you have a what else you do? Besides
Well,
speaking.
right now, that's my main focus. My main
Okay.
focus is just getting this message out there to those college, high school students, student athletes on asking for help when they're going through those tough moments. In the future, I definitely have thought about, I've written down some ideas. Eventually, along my career, I will write a book. I would love to come out with a course at some point where students could purchase on how to make healthy decisions in tough moments. I think that'd be very valuable for them because, as you said, everyone's recovering from some things. And I'll add to that, everybody goes through multiple struggles in their life. I
Right.
firmly believe that as humans, there are some things that you can't run from, you can't hide from, you can't avoid. You've got to face
Yeah.
them head on, right? Like for you,
Yeah.
you got to face that addiction you had head on. Or if
Right.
you didn't, you wouldn't recover from it. So those are some of the things I've talked about, I've written down. I'm kind of trying to plan out later in my career, writing a book, having a course, maybe even at some point too. I've been thinking about starting a podcast, but
Okay.
we're going to do one thing at a time here. So I think the next thing up would be a book just to get that message out there more.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's gonna be a powerful book because I can feel your energy, right?
Yeah.
I can feel, even though this is a platform, a podcast, but I can really feel, right, that there's more to it. And I can already visualize you up on stage because you know I speak too, right? And I transform when I get up, you know, up on the
Yeah.
stage because it comes out, man. It comes out. I cry, I laugh, I crack jokes. I just be myself, you know. Do you travel with this thing? Okay, what if some people listen to this, say, you know what? I want that guy to come to my city and speak
Oh,
to some
yeah.
kids. Do you
Yeah.
how they
I am.
contact you?
Well, I'm based in Boston. So I speak around New England, but also last 2 weeks ago, I was in West Virginia. I was in Ohio the next day. I've spoken in organizations, schools, teams, North Carolina, New York, New Jersey. I'm going to
Okay,
Florida on Wednesday. So, I'm all over. Wherever this takes
okay,
me, I go. If it takes me to another country, I'm going there. But how do they
good
get a hold
deal.
of me? The best way to get a hold of me is my email, Eric at thedecisionswemake.com. And then even my telephone number, 781-502-8323. Those are the best ways to get a hold of me. My cell phone, again, 781-502-8323, or my email, Eric at thedecisionswemake.com. Right now, my website is currently under construction. I got a lot of different things going on with it. So that's,
Okay,
as we speak, it's not up right now. But I'm also, a lot of the content and stuff, if you're looking for videos and stuff, that's on LinkedIn. You just go on LinkedIn, you type in Eric Daddario, and I sent you that link actually. But
okay,
because again, my website, it's under construction right now. But yeah, my LinkedIn, Eric Daddario, and I'll pop right up. You can
good
see
deal.
videos and my content.
Awesome, man. Awesome. 'Cause I know there will be some people reaching out to you. I'm gonna make sure I keep you archived. Now, before we wrap this thing up, Eric, I know you help a lot of kids, student athletes, but you focus on that making decisions, man.
Yeah.
How how do you go about approaching helping children helping the youth make better decisions?
So I'm going to talk about 3 steps here about making better decisions. Because when you're in those tough moments and you're making decisions, especially let's stick to we're going through anxiety, we're going through depression. Let's stick with that because we've been talking a lot through this whole episode about it. And so we'll talk about the nerves, the concern, the fright. So making the decision to ask for help, how do you make those decisions with all that fear, with all the emotions that are going through your body? Well, number one, I like to tell the kids, take a step back. If no one's in front of you, or if even they are, just taking a step back, moving your body for a sec, closing your eyes and taking a few deep breaths. In through the nose, out through the mouth. In through the nose, out through the mouth. And when you take a few deep breaths, what this does is it calms the emotions, the feelings, the nerves down. Because a lot of times I'll hear kids and they'll say, I made this choice and I just wasn't thinking. I don't know what happened. And that's exactly right. They weren't thinking. They let their emotions and their feelings become the driver in the choice that they made. So when you take those deep breaths, it helps to calm your emotions, your feelings down. And now you are more in control, not your emotions and your feelings and the nerves and all that. You're in control. So that's the first way to almost gain control of yourselves. Just take a few deep breaths and to calm those emotions and feelings down. And then number two, after we've done that, all right, this choice I'm about to make, ask yourself this question, most important question, I say, why? Why would I make this choice? What is the reason? I firmly believe asking ourselves questions is a huge part of making healthy decisions. And really just seeing, if you are struggling with asking for help for some anxiety or depression, or maybe you're going through substance misuse right now. Why? Why would I make this choice? Because this is what's going to help me to take that step. The third thing is, and I'm sure you've experienced this because a lot of people have, not letting your decisions you've made in the past affect you now.
Okay.
Not beating yourself up for decisions because a lot of people will think, well, we can circle back to what we talked about when you said, well, how can people, if they have asked for help and they have been reprimanded or yelled at, or their emotions and feelings not been validated, how can they ask for help? Well, a big thing is knowing that, not beating yourself up for what happened last time, really seeing that you can ask for help from somebody else and just learning from that experience and leaving that experience behind, but taking the lessons from that and moving forward with them. So not letting those decisions you've made in the past that were negative on you, not beat yourself up about them. Look at them. What did I learn from it? Okay, I learned that maybe this person wasn't an adult that I should have approached. Maybe it was a person I was forced to approach and was an adult I trusted. Now moving forward, I'm going to, whenever I'm struggling with something, I'm going to approach a trusted adult. So those are the three biggest things I feel to help you make better decisions. Really take those deep breaths to calm the emotions and feelings down. Ask yourself questions before you're about to make a decision. And then not letting the decisions you've made in the past affect you now, beating yourself up about them.